So it all began as an ordinary summer trip. In July 2014, a 28-year-old German man named Lars Mittank flew with a group of friends to Bulgaria's Black Sea coast. The destination was Golden Sands, a buzzing seaside resort known for their cheap hotels, crowded nightclubs, and endless partying. For young travelers across Europe, this was a place to escape life for a good week. The sunburned long days on the beach, followed by very long nights of drinking and partying. And by all accounts, Lars himself fit into this lifestyle very well. He wasn't a recluse or an outsider. Back home in Wilhelmshaven in Germany, he lived a very normal life, worked an ordinary job, and had a close relationship with his mother. He was described as an easygoing person and deeply devoted to his favorite football club, Werder Bremen. In Bulgaria, though, he was just another tourist on holiday, laughing with his friends, drinking beers, and soaking up the late-night chaos of the resort trip. But unfortunately, Golden Sands had a bit of a darker side too. Beyond the neon clubs and tourist bars, the area was notorious for big fights between rival football fans and the occasional run-in with local gangs. And it was here, on one of those late-night outs, that Lars's holiday took an unexpected turn. A simple argument, a flash of violence, and suddenly the trip by the sea would never be the same again. One night in Golden Sands, Lars and his friends found themselves caught in some kind of argument that was all too common in the resort town. It began with football, which is just a rivalry that runs deep in Germany. Lars was a very loyal fan of the football club that he supported, but in the bar that night, a group of Bayern Munich fans decided to just test him. Words were exchanged, voices were raised, and what started as drunken banter quickly turned sour. A scuffle broke out, Lars was struck, he was beaten and left with a very painful injury, a ruptured eardrum. His friends did try to calm things down, but the damage was already done. Though it wasn't life-threatening, his injury did mean that Lars was just in a lot of discomfort. The next day, he actually visited a local doctor who gave him some antibiotics and advised him to avoid flying in the plane until his ear healed, just because it would be too painful. That recommendation obviously forced a bit of an unexpected choice. While his friends prepared to head back to Germany, Lars made the decision to stay behind in Bulgaria just for a few more days to make sure that his ear had healed properly before he got onto his next flight. It seemed like a small delay, just a very minor inconvenience caused by just simply bad luck and getting into this altercation with these people. His friends did leave reluctantly. They did want to stay behind with him, but they had no reason to think that it was the last time that they would ever see Lars again. In his own words, he was just staying there to wait for his ear to heal, and then he would be on the next flight home. What none of them would know is that Lars's very short extension in the Golden Sands would mark the beginning of something far more unsettling and so terrifying. In the days that followed, his behavior would take a very strange, very paranoid turn, and the carefree holiday atmosphere of Bulgaria would give way to a sense of growing fear for Lars. Alone in Golden Sands, Lars's world began to shift. What had started as a very simple delay for medical reasons soon became something much darker, something his friends would later describe as completely out of character for him. Lars switched hotels very suddenly, leaving the one that he had originally booked and moving into a much cheaper, rougher place near the airport. When asked why, he told his mother that he just didn't feel safe at the hotel that he was currently in. He actually claimed that men were following him, shadowing his every move, and at one point he even said that he thought the group from the bar fight had sent people after him to do who knows what to him. Staff at the hotel also noticed his strange behavior. Guests reported seeing him pace very nervously, muttering to himself and refusing to eat the food that he ordered. He told his mother in a very hushed voice over the phone that he believed people wanted to poison him. From here, the paranoia just grew more and more intense. He began texting his mother very frantically at very odd hours, describing strangers he thought were genuinely after him. He left the hotel in the middle of the night, disappearing for hours before returning very disheveled and completely frightened out of his mind. No one actually knows if the threat that Lars feared was real, if someone was truly following him, or if it was just a result of his head injury, the medication, or something else entirely. What is certain is that those final days in Golden Sands, Lars was no longer the relaxed tourist that he had been at the beginning when they arrived there. He was looking over his shoulder, completely convinced that he was being hunted. As Lars's paranoia deepened, his mother Sandra just became his lifeline. From Germany, she listened as her son's voice grew more frantic, more broken with each call. He told her things that made very little sense, but he always sounded very frightened. At one point, he even said that he overheard men talking about him in the hotel halls. He believed they wanted to kill him. Sandra, his mother, did try to calm him to remind him that he was safe, but Lars just was not convinced. He kept telling her that he doesn't want to die there, and the phrase, of course, chilled her, not just because of what he said, but because of how certain he sounded that people were out to get him and that he was being hunted. Then came the strangest little detail. Lars actually suggested that the antibiotics that he had been prescribed were part of some other plot. He refused to take them, claiming that these pills were poisoned. He switched hotels again, texted his mom at odd hours, and begged his mother to cancel all of his bank cards so no one could use them if they were stolen. At this point, Sandra just didn't know what to believe. Was her son truly in danger in Bulgaria, or was something inside his own mind frightening him? What she couldn't have known was that these were unfortunately some of her last conversations with her son. The next time the world saw Lars Mittank, it would be on a grainy airport surveillance camera, moments before he vanished forever. On the morning of July 8th of 2014, Lars Mittank arrived at Varna Airport in Bulgaria. His journey home was finally within reach, and he was finally to get on the flight back to Germany. He had been alone for days, and the thought of returning to Germany to the safety of familiar streets and his mother's voice must have felt like salvation. But before he could board his flight, there was of course one last step. Because of his ear injury, airport staff directed him to the airport's medical office. A doctor examined him and determined that despite the ruptured eardrum, he was fit to fly. Lars should have been relieved. The delay was over. His whole ordeal in Bulgaria, whatever it had been, was nearly finished. Yet, inside that room that Lars was sitting in, something changed. Witnesses later recalled that Lars was very restless, he was jittery, he seemed unable to sit still, and at one point, a construction worker walked into the medical office, and Lars's reaction was startling. He froze, wide-eyed, then muttered something under his breath, and then a moment later, he bolted out of the office. It was almost as if the presence of that stranger walking into the office triggered a sudden wave of terror, as if Lars believed that these pursuers had finally caught up to him. He darted out of the doctor's office, leaving behind his luggage, his wallet, his phone, even his passport. To walk away from those things was unthinkable for a traveler in a foreign country. I mean, how the bloody hell are you going to get home if you lose all of those things? Yet Lars abandoned them completely without hesitation, though none of it mattered anymore. Surveillance cameras captured what happened next, and I'm going to show you the terrifying footage. Lars sprinting through the airport's main hall, pushing past startled travelers and vanishing out of sight. The CCTV cameras outside the airport caught Lars again, and what they recorded is among the most haunting images of a missing persons case. He is seen rushing out of the glass sliding doors, then running across the parking lot with a very frantic, almost desperate energy. He doesn't stop to look back, doesn't slow down to catch his breath. His sprint is wild, as though sheer adrenaline has just taken over his body. He darts across the road and disappears behind a row of tall fences. Witnesses actually later reported that he scaled one of them with astonishing speed, then plunged into a very thick patch of woodland beyond the airport's perimeter. And then, nothing. Search teams, of course, combed the area in the days that followed. Helicopters, dogs, and local police scoured the forest, fields, and villages nearby, but not a single trace of Lars was ever found. No footprints, no items of clothing, no body. It was quite literally as though he had vanished into thin air. The CCTV footage of his final moments, the run across the airport grounds, the leap over the fence, the blur of his figure disappearing into the trees, remains the last confirmed sighting of Lars Mittank. To this day, still no one knows what he was running from, or if he was running towards something only he could see. The disappearance of Lars Mittank definitely left behind a trail of confusion with almost no answers. Every single detail of those final days raises a question that has never been resolved. Why did he become so paranoid in the first place? He was a very healthy young man on holiday with his friends. Was his fear justified, or was it the product of something happening inside his own mind? Why did he insist that the antibiotics were poisoned? The prescription was routine and it was meant to just prevent infection in his damaged ear. Yet to Lars, it became evidence of some sort of conspiracy he believed was put against him. Why did he suddenly abandon his hotel, his belongings, and even his passport in the end? For a tourist in a foreign country, those are your lifelines, and to leave them behind made absolutely no sense. Unless Lars truly believed that carrying them would somehow put him in grave danger, or maybe those last moments where he was in the medical office, something frightened him so much that he didn't even think twice about those belongings. And the most haunting question of all is what happened after the cameras stopped recording, or when he was out of reach of the cameras. He was last seen sprinting into the trees, but from that moment, he just vanished. No witness reported ever seeing him again, no trace of clothing or remains was ever discovered. The Bulgarian countryside has literally searched countless times for him and still nothing. His family, of course, clings to hope that maybe he is alive in maybe another foreign country, maybe he was kidnapped, maybe he was trafficked, but with each passing year, the silence only deepens. Lars's case actually became known as the most famous missing person on YouTube, replayed and speculated about millions of times by so many people around the world. But the mystery remains as stark today as it was in July of 2014. How can a man run away in broad daylight in front of cameras and witnesses and just never be seen again? Over the years, lots of theories have of course been put forward to explain what happened to Lars. None have been proven, but each offers a different lens through which to view his sudden paranoia and disappearance. So we're going to go through some of them. So the first one is a medical explanation. One of the most common theories is that Lars's behavior was the result of his ear injury. A ruptured eardrum can lead to severe pain, dizziness, and even disorientation. If it developed into an infection, swelling can occur, and if it was infected in the inner ear, this could have affected his balance and perception. Some doctors suggest that the strange behavior may have been linked to temporal lobe inflammation, which is a condition that can actually cause hallucinations, paranoia, and erratic actions. In this light, Lars' fear may not have been rooted in reality at all, but a sudden medical crisis that warped his own sense of the world. There is also a psychological possibility that Lars suffered a sudden onset of mental illness. Conditions such as schizophrenia often appear in a person's late 20s, and they can actually manifest with the exact symptoms that Lars displayed, which is extreme paranoia, fear of being followed, refusal to eat due to beliefs of poisoning, the timing, which is his age, the stress of the injury, the isolation in a foreign country, completely fits this pattern. And if true, his disappearance just may have been the tragic result of an untreated psychological break, driving him to just flee into the woods with no clear plan for survival. Some have also speculated that Lars's paranoia came from a bad reaction to the medication that he was given for his ear. He had been prescribed antibiotics, and while uncommon, adverse side effects can include anxiety and hallucinations. Another possibility is that someone spiked his drink during the night out, a theory that would explain his sudden belief that people were after him. However, there's of course no evidence to confirm either of these scenarios. Some also believe that it could have just simply been foul play. Lars himself repeatedly claimed that he was being followed. Could it be true? It could have been true. We would never know. Like I said earlier, Golden Sands is known for petty crime and gang activity, and violent confrontations between football fans are just very common. It's possible that Lars was actually being targeted after the bar fight, and that his paranoia was based on genuine threats from these people. If so, fleeing from the airport might have been his very desperate attempt to escape pursuers who were closing in on him. Yet this theory, of course, raises its own contradictions. If he was in danger, why has no body, no clothing, and no trace ever surfaced in over a decade? Each of these theories definitely fit the parts of the puzzle, but none of them explain it completely. Medical explanations just cannot account for why Lars was never found. Foul play can't explain his behavior in the days before the airport, and a psychological breakdown, while plausible, definitely doesn't resolve how a man could vanish without leaving even a single clue. More than a decade has passed since the cameras at Varna Airport captured Lars Mittank's frantic sprints into the unknown, and in this time, his case has become one of the most widely discussed disappearances in the world, replayed and debated continuously online. Yet, for all of the speculation, one fact still remains: no one has ever seen him again, and there is quite literally no evidence that the police have to go off. Search parties have continued to scour the Bulgarian countryside, police have continued to interview witnesses, his family's pleaded for answers, but the trail ended at the edge of that forest that day in July 2014. No phone calls, no bank card usage, no body, just complete silence. What makes Lars' story so unsettling to me is not just the disappearance itself, but the paranoia leading up to that day at the airport, and what exactly made him snap and made him leave the airport so frantic. I can't actually think of a single thing that would make me quite literally get up and run out of the airport when you're so close to going home to Germany, to your mother, and to your safe space. But the unanswered questions are definitely what keeps this case alive and what keeps people speaking about it. Just what was Lars running from, and did he know something that we didn't know? And so still, the last image we have of Lars is him running full speed into the trees, carrying nothing but his fear and leaving behind a question that will probably never be answered in our lifetime. If you enjoyed this kind of video, please don't forget to hit like. I would love to know what you think about this case, what you think happened to Lars, and if there's any information that you know that I may not have found, please drop it in the comments down below. I would love to read it. And please let me know what theories you have or what theories you believe. If you enjoy this kind of video, please don't forget to hit like. And if you like this kind of content, please don't forget to hit subscribe. I post new videos every week. And in saying that, I will see you next week. Bye.